warned of decisions of eye-watering difficulty. Does this mean we are going to be seeing a return to austerity?
Well, they are going to be very difficult decisions, but we are a resilient country.
Is it likely that support could be more targeted to people who are more vulnerable?
Well, we want to support people who need support. We don't want anyone not to be able to afford to heat their home over this winter or indeed future winters. But in the long run, what you need is a plan that means that we don't need to have to give very, very expensive support as taxpayers, because we've got an energy system that works better. The world has changed very dramatically over the last year. But the plan that we'll outline will help us get through this in a way that I want to make sure that this recession, if we're in a recession, is as short and shallow as possible and get through to the economy growing healthily the other side. And that's the plan that I think will give people confidence.
Frankly, this doesn't look like a health service that can find efficiency savings. This looks like a health service that, is on the brink of collapse.
There are massive pressures in the NHS. Obviously, it's something I know very well from previous jobs I've done. And I think that doctors, nurses on the front line are frankly under unbearable pressure. So I do recognise the picture you say. It's also true that there is a lot of money going to the NHS, and they will be the first to say that in a context where funding for the NHS is going up, we need to do everything we can to find efficiencies. But if you're saying to me the NHS is in a very, very tricky situation, I agree. And, I care passionately about the NHS.
So you're going to look at that specifically to try and, look at the benefit systems, try and encourage people back to work who you believe could be working more?
We need to look at all public services to make sure that they're doing the right thing for the economy.
So you'll be paying a bit more tax then after next week?
Well, we're all going to be paying a bit more tax, I'm afraid, Sophie. But it's not just going to be bad news. I think what people recognise is that if you want to give people confidence about the future, you have to be honest about the present, and you have to have a plan.
Public sector workers who are likely to be seeing real-term cuts to their pay at a time when inflation is at 10%.
Well, I'm very conscious of the concerns, for example, of nurses who are considering industrial action at the moment. And if you listen to what nurses' leaders say, their concern is about the impact of inflation on their pay packet. And the point I would make, Conservatives know that a thriving, dynamic economy needs low taxes and sound money. But sound money has to come first, because if you're a nurse, it's inflation that is eroding the spending power in your pay packet. It's meaning that your weekly shop is becoming much more expensive. It's meaning that mortgages are more expensive than they were. And so we need to do something that shows public sector workers, just as we show everyone, that we're getting back to a low inflation economy where they don't have to worry about bills getting higher and higher. If we gave everyone inflation-proof pay rises, inflation would stay. We wouldn't bring down inflation. And that's why, I'm not pretending there aren't some difficult decisions. But what I want to say to nurses, to everyone, is that the way through this is to bring down inflation as quickly as possible, because that is the root cause of your concern, your anger, your frustration, that your pay isn't going as far as it might have.
You talk about difficult decisions and everyone being impacted, but I just wonder if that's true, because, according to reports, the triple lock on pensions will be protected. So pensions will be going up by 10% linked to inflation. Do nurses have broader shoulders than, a wealthy retiree spending time on the golf course?
Well, I think these are the questions you should ask me after I announce what the decisions are next week. But I would say that there is a lot of pensioner poverty, a lot of pensioners in very...
But the triple lock's not means-tested, though, is it?
Well, very often pensioners need help, and it's not necessarily people on the very lowest incomes. But I think you have to wait for the decisions, and then we'll see. But I think what you'll see overall is a broad approach that recognises that where we can, we need to prioritise people on the lowest incomes.